Alright, so our presenter tonight is Loren, KE0HZ, and he's going to talk to us about Hamvention as a first-time attendee this year.
That's correct. So, some of you older guys, you remember when your parents took you over to your aunt and uncle's house to see slides of their family vacation?
I'm leaving.
This is nothing. This is hopefully nothing like that. Hopefully. So, Hamvention, when, where, and what is it? It was May 17th through the 19th, this month, not quite 2 months ago, at the Greene County Fairgrounds in Xenia, Ohio. There's the lat long, if you're interested. And this year I heard that they had a record-setting attendance of almost 36,000 people through the gates. And on that fairgrounds, that was a nice crowd. So, lower left, this is an aerial shot of the fairgrounds. These larger buildings are exhibit halls. This was where forums were held in this one, and I think forums down the way, and then a couple of smaller halls. So, total of 5 different buildings that were all filled with exhibitors. This thing that looks like a parking lot is actually vendors. It was a long walk to go up and down to go through and see all of the stuff that was available for sale. Not to diss the the local ham fest, but that wouldn't have covered 5% of, or probably a lot less than that actually. And then the shot on the right is just one of the larger halls, and in some times it was more crowded than that picture actually shows. So why would you want to attend? See the latest product releases and innovations. Meet old and new friends. Interesting people with whom you have lots in common. Face-to-face QSOs. A lot of international attendees. Learning opportunities. You learn about stuff that you didn't even know existed just by walking around and seeing things. Buy stuff. That's a key thing. And if you've been before, Bob, do you get well, your wife goes with you.
She goes on her own expedition.
Antique shops, right?
She goes to the antique shops and the Amish shops. And I went to buy stuff because I didn't want to pay $15 in shipping for a $20 part from Wolf River Coil. So we did a 3,000-mile road trip.
So, new stuff. You really do need that new HF rig or that solid state amp.
And again, to put into that, not much discounts anywhere. Maybe you can get a free shipping, but
to that point, it depends. It depends.
Bob, you'll remember what I bought was a 10% show discount. The ADSB receiver was discounted 10%. Okay.
And I'm getting
I
it.
don't consider that much.
I'm
living on Social Security. I'll take everything I can get.
I'll get to it later. I'll get ahead of myself here. But one of my missions was to go look for a handheld radio, an FT65 for one of our club members, who contacted me and said, "Hey, could you just take a look and see if there's decent show pricing? $50 off the handheld." So it was. I don't know what the percentage worked out, but it was more than 10%. It was a nice deal. Oh. And someone's junk is somebody's treasure. And in that infield, you got to see a lot of treasures and a lot of junk. It's pretty amazing. Hamvention basics. This field, that's the parking lot. That wasn't even showing up on that previous picture. This is what it looked like on Friday morning, and then it started to rain. I wish I had taken a picture of that parking lot where cars were having, that grass was turning into mud tracks, and cars were getting pushed by people. It was, having all-wheel drive, a real Colorado car was quite handy. And then in the middle of all those buildings, Central Plaza, where all the food trucks or food stands are located, and a lot of open space. Best if it's not raining, but it's awful sunny and bright out there too. So one of the really cool things are the forums. And there are a lot of forums. And this is not a complete list. Contesting, digital modes, ballooning, emergency ops, youth outreach, satellite, soda poda, radio sport, remote operating, antennas, fox hunting, ham sci, the law and amateur radio. And that was a seminar on living in restricted covenant controlled areas. And there's some legislation that has been introduced in Congress that would really help out ham radio antennas in some of these neighborhoods. Node-RED, Linux, circuit analysis, the Clean Signal Initiative, which is about transmitters that are cleaner and not sending out spurious signal. Morse code, lightning and grounding. Yes?
What one, just for example, what ones of those did you go to?
I'll get to that.
Okay, then I'll shut up.
I will specifically address that. 4 forums going on simultaneously on the hour, every hour from the start of the show at 9 o'clock until 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon in 4 locations. So you can't do everything, and get to that too. Technical presentations and panel discussions, and many by really well-known hams. And the really cool thing is you get an opportunity, not in all cases, but to intercept the speaker and ask personal questions, and ask questions in person to them. And several of them that I spoke with had time for me to do that. That was pretty cool. Just throwing in, this is the Bob table at Nick's. Bob K0NR is at the far end of the table, and our Bob W0HTH is at this end. And there's Bob taking a picture of Bob at the other end of the table at Nick's. And when do you make your reservation for Nick's? So plan ahead. When do you make your hotel reservations?
They're already made.
It really, if you know you're going, it helps to plan ahead.
But they are fully refundable or cancelable up to within 30 days. But rooms book up fast. I think Michael's on the hook for this year, right?
So, how many of you do not listen or to podcasts or see YouTube videos of some of these ham radio guys? That's understandable. You get to meet people you feel like you already know if you are listening to or watching these podcasts. And there's a broad spectrum of stuff. The guys in the orange are primarily English from the UK. Martin and his son, Butler. And then they've got guys from Germany and the US that participate. It's called the ICQ podcast. I stood and talked to those guys for probably close to an hour. Just a great conversation. Lower left, one of the guys from from Linux in the Ham Shack podcast, Bill Stearns. We were talking about my interest in going to Linux for my Ham Shack computer, and we were talking about what log he uses, because that's the issue right now is I'm using a Windows app, and if I can find a good Linux log, I can make the conversion here pretty easily.
That's a great call sign.
It is nerd, yeah, or the 4, yeah, and he is, I can assure you. The guys on the right are from the Ham Radio Workbench podcast. Thomas Witherspoon, K4SWL, he is a POTA operator, I mean, serious POTA operator. He doesn't know how many radios he has. He reviews them, but a lot of portable operating. Mark Smitty Halibut Smith is quit his IT job and now is producing accessories of stuff. And we'll talk about him a little bit more. Mike Walker, VA3MW, who is an employee of Flex Radio and a remote operator. He lives in the Toronto area, but has a cabin up in the hinterland in Canada that he operates remotely for a quiet signal, very quiet signal up there. Again, I had good FaceTime with these guys, and specific question for Jason Johnston, ran into him. And then I also bumped into another kind of famous guy, and it was almost a literal bumping into. We were going out, I was going into a building through a double door, kind of like that, as he was coming out. And we had to turn to avoid running into each other. And I did this double take. What's that? Yeah, that was. But he was kind of moving around in incognito mode, walking with head down, got outside, put the sunglasses on. So I wasn't going to be that guy and go run up and tap him on the shoulder. But anyway, famous ham, and has done a lot for ham radio.
And he was the lead singer for the Eagles.
No, he wasn't. Not the league. He was in lead guitarist. Guitarist. But it was the Eagles, the James Gang.
Battle of the Bands in Ohio. I saw him as a junior high kid. Didn't know he was going to be famous.
Yeah. Anyway, he is a famous AM operator and uses an old Collins. This is beyond boat anchor.
He heats his house with it.
I think his house is too big even for that to heat. But and then Bob ran into a couple of guys, Michael
Martins. So Michael, KB9 BBR, is for Parks on the Air portable operators. I don't know how many times I've worked with him, but he has a big YouTube channel that is all about portable operations, as well as he has his own antenna company. And I think he's most famous for the window screen underneath your antenna to use as a ground plane to improve your antenna performance. And he came by and I just chit-chatting with him, and all of a sudden I see him standing in front of Stu Turner's booth, our instructors, hamradioschool.com. They had a booth there, and he filmed that for his YouTube channel. And so if you go to Michael's YouTube and look at his Hamvention 2024, I think about 10 minutes in, it's his interview with Stu that he did for about 3-4 minutes about it. So I sent it off to him.
He does great videos for how to do stuff on the radio. Really does.
How to program.
Step by step, how to set up your APRS or how to choose whatever.
Bob, you talked with Dave Kassler.
Who I almost walked past. But my cohort over there grabbed me, he goes, "There's Dave Kessler." And I turned around and looked, he was in an electric wheelchair, scooter type thing. And Dave is over outside of Ridgeway, up by Billy Creek State Wildlife Area.
You drove past his
Yeah,
house.
drove past this. Only because I thought his house was somewhere else in Ridgeway until Michael was on the road. You know, and he's up Billy Creek State Wildlife Area near Ridgeway State Park. I was in Uray for 4th of July as usual. But Dave Kessler has a column in UST magazine now for the ARRL publication every month. Ask Dave. And I don't know whether he was just appreciative that we recognized him and stopped to talk to him, you know, and just shook hands like 3 or 4 times, I think. And I told him I really appreciated it. He has every course online. He takes you through step by step. I don't know how many YouTube videos he must have out there, but
I think it was a little bit the Colorado connection.
yeah.
We introduced
Yeah.
ourselves as from Colorado. When I met him the year before, same
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, there's another Colorado ham," you know. So I think that Colorado connection was what really struck a nerve with him.
Yeah.
So
So
give us a presentation here.
no, he did it via Zoom several years ago here, and I asked him again, and he says, "Yeah, just email me, and you know, I'll do whatever you want me to do." But I know he's battled leukemia at one time. I think he's in remission on that. But he did look pretty frail when we met him.
It was in a year. It was
Yeah.
very obvious of the decline. When I met him the year before, it was up walking and all, and now it's golf cart.
But super guy.
So here's one of the exhibitors, Shell Raden KF0UR, who is one of the co-owners of QRP Works, selling accessories. I actually drove with him out along with Jim Langsted, KC0RPS from Golden. We drove together out and shared some time. Shell is a member, sort of a member of the club. He doesn't come every 12 months, but he participates with and tracks our activities, and he lives a stone's throw from me in the Springs. And then the picture on the right is the ham radio school. There's Stu and his wife Liz, and Bob and Joyce Whitty were also wearing the ham radio school shirts, and Liz and Joyce were going out and checking out all the competition, because there were a bunch of people that were selling books, get your license, or various classes of license, and they were promoting and directing people back to ham radio school. These people are smarter than they look. They looked a little goofy wearing the lab coats around, but the guy on the right is Dr. Nathaniel Frizzell, who is the head of the HamSci organization. There's a couple of other PhDs in there. He's a space physics and electrical engineering doctor, and these are grad students that are in school, either getting their master's and doctoral degrees in space physics, but they are doing experiments primarily to develop predictive capabilities for propagation due to the physics in the ionosphere. And that was one of the presentations I went to, where they were reporting the data from the solar eclipse that took place a few months ago. And there was a ham event where if you were operating digital or CW during the eclipse, you were participating because the skimmers and the PSK reporter that collects information on digital QSOs are getting scraped by them, and then others were doing submitting logs for single sideband connections. And they're looking at what happened to propagation effects. What was the number of QSOs that are taking place that are crossing over the path of the eclipse? So they're doing a whole bunch of stuff like that. One of the other presentations I went to is that they're working with TAPR, the Tucson area PR. I'm not sure what that is, but these guys have been building or designing kits for various applications. One of the earlier ones they did were modems that were initially used for digital.
Isn't APRS,
That might have been a TAPR.
yeah, they were the ones that developed what we use now for APRS.
What they're
That APRS is positioning locator for ham radio operators on their radios. So it's almost like you're going through the net or spot.
you have a GPS position in your radio, and then it is transmitted to a station then that collects that information and ultimately publishes it on a map.
Goes to OOD. He hasn't, is setting up a node at his house where your signals picked up by Tim's device and dumped out on the internet.
APRS, one of the, Jim Langsted is works with a balloon club up in the Denver metro area, and he went to they launched 2 balloons with radios, APRS radios on it. And at noon one day, Saturday, during Hamvention, one of the balloons made it over Lebanon, and all of a sudden it wasn't reporting anymore. The other balloon actually, I think, circled the globe twice, and on the third trip, it went over Lebanon, and all of a sudden it quit reporting.
Man, that was in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. So.
Kansas.
Lebanon, Kansas.
So anyway, the other forum that I went to is these guys are working with TAPR to develop a personal space weather station. So they're using magnetometers. They're using to look at the effects of solar activity as it disrupts the magnetic field of the Earth. And then they're also doing timing of signals. So they use a very disciplined oscillator and a very accurate clock, generally from GPS. And looking at, they're monitoring WWV and WWVH, which are National Bureau of Standards transmitters on certain frequencies that give an accurate time and frequency reading. And they're measuring timing delays based on path length. And they can actually see as the ionosphere goes up, meaning the D layer is dissolving and now we're E and F layer, they can see how the path length increases and time and signals arrive a little bit later, and they can calculate the height of the ionosphere that's doing the HF signal reflection. You too could have a space weather station and be monitoring this and feeding data to them. It's pretty cool for me. I like this a lot. And then Bob ran into this guy. I hope he doesn't have his transmitter on that extra boost mode, because I don't think that extra couple of watts is doing his brain a good thing. But
yeah, we've been talking that all antennas are compromised. This guy's walking around with one on his ball.
This is kind of in
And
the,
he had a handheld attached to it.
here's just a couple of pictures out on the infield. You know, the tents, there were plenty of tents because you needed some shade out there. It's too small to read here for you guys, but this is a pre-estate sale.
Yeah, well, basically it says his wife and daughter do not want this, so he was told to get rid of it
Before he passes.
before he passes.
And then, as I mentioned, some people's junk is somebody else's treasure. There were a bunch of places where there were just these bins of things, and there are people that are rummaging through them. An obscure tube, a capacitor with the appropriate voltage rating, you could probably find something. I'm not sure it's worth the time to go digging, but. So, suggestion if you're thinking of or planning to attend, make a plan. Look at a list of the booth registrants. You can see who's there, who's been there in the past, vendors, manufacturers, special interest groups, the POTA guys, the Long Island CW Club was there. There was a guy sitting there drinking coffee. I couldn't tell you if there were dots or dashes. It was a blur, and he's just, yeah, no problem. And he gets on and he sends another blur of code back, and it's phenomenal. Look at the list of forums. They're all published, the times that they're at, where they're located. Define your mission. What do you want to do there? And
Save $15 on shipping.
I'll tell you what my mission was in a minute. Learn about a new technology. There was a bunch of stuff about FreeDV, and if you don't know, FreeDV is a vocoder, similar to DMR or D-Star or some of these other technologies, but this is being utilized on HF frequencies. And Jim, I think they get away with doing the digital stuff that can't be understood because it's an open source
Yeah, you can't
code.
basically encrypt anything. You have to be able to read it somehow in the clear. That's part of our.
And so this is being developed and free because Motorola owns licensing for DMR and proprietary vocoders. And that's why the digital addition to your handheld raises the price, typically, fairly significantly, because they're paying royalties to the, and this is a technology that hams are developing that would get around licensing fees for that technology. Get info on operations, contesting, POTA, satellite, talk to experts about new equipment, seek out possible presenters for club meetings. I did that too. I got the ham side guys willing to talk to us. Find a deal on that boat anchor you'd like to refurbish, or find an obscure part for that homebrew project that you have in mind. And it takes some planning because it takes a little time to get out there and allocate the time for it. So lay out a schedule based on the forum timing. List vendors and attendees related to your interests. Note their location so you can find them. Be flexible. If you got a question, Farhan, who is the guy who developed, an Indian guy who developed the SBitX, which is a real popular DIY homebrew, semi-homebrew transceiver, or Hans Summer from QRP Labs. If you want to talk to him, you may have to go by that booth 15 times to find there to be less than 10 people that are in line to talk to these guys. So they're popular.
A little key to that, though, is if you go just before it closes, usually the attendees have drifted off to Nick's or wherever they're going, and these guys are still there. They have to be there till 5 o'clock. And like Bob can testify, I talked to one of the principals at Ellicraft for 45 minutes just
3
before it
days.
closed.
3 days.
Now, we have common friends.
And try to make your decision that you're gonna go early, because you got a lot better selection of hotels. I actually booked kind of late and stayed out of town about 35 miles. But it was smooth sailing in, got to circumvent the traffic in town and come in from the backside, and it wasn't too bad.
Were you east?
We were, the Washington Courthouse was the name of the community we were in, which was east.
Yeah,
East in the,
East is a better way to get in, because everybody's coming in from Dayton, which is west of Xenia. And the traffic coming in from the Dayton area is horrid.
That, and the interstate is on the west side. So this is our hotel that we usually stay, that we've been staying in, Cedarville, by Yellow Springs.
yeah, so we were probably at 10
Yeah,
to 12
we
miles
went through-
further out
Yeah.
than you were, but I'd stay out there again, shoot, $95 a night was the rate, which was way less than.
If you want to stay on the corner.
They got a Dairy Queen and they had a couple of nice restaurants. Okay, some observations. Just this is this guy who was licensed 55 years ago and finally got around to going to this. Not surprisingly, hams are really generally interested to tell you what they're doing, how something works, or recent contact. You may spend a lot more time than you realize in the face-to-face queue. So at the risk of missing the forum that you were on your way to, I didn't know that happened to you, but I missed one that.
Bob, look at every turn I made on Friday. I was running into somebody that I knew. It's incredible, the people you may have talked on HF or Link Systems or vendors that you have dealt with or whatever.
We had lunch with the guy from Ohio.
Yeah.
That is on there with Bill from South Africa all the time. And we finally got to meet each other face to face.
So for our guests who are here tonight, there were more young people around than I expected to see. I sat and had lunch across from a grandfather and a 12-year-old kid who had recently taken his technician and his general at the same time and passed it. And he's carrying an HT around and he's having a ball.
And like even if you're, whether you're newly licensed or you're just getting involved in ham radio, last year was my first year and I didn't go to any of the forums. Of course, I was with Jim at the But no, so it was like I didn't want to go to forums. So this year I decided to go to a couple of forums, and like I said, last month's presentation that I did on Parks on the Air, POTA, was their PowerPoint presentation. They did an Hamvention, and I just changed the pictures to our club folks to protect the innocent. But I mean, there are people who do presentations there. If you want to just ask them, I took a wild shot. He says, "Oh yeah," he says, "It's too big to email. I'll put it in Google Docs. Here's my email. Contact me, and I'll send it to you." And it was like after I got back home, it was like 2 days. I had the presentation for last month, and I got that in May, so I could practice.
I've been to a lot of exhibitions over the years, but I gotta say the food selection and quality was better than expected. And if I had discovered the pork chop sandwich on Friday, that would have been the only thing that I ate that week. But it was like a tomahawk cut and about that thick in a bun, and That was good. That was really good.
And homemade ice cream.
So this is kind of funny because one of the other missions that I had was one of my mentees from the technician class last fall had asked me to, I've been helping him program his new Yaesu, and he tried to use Chirp, and he was having trouble. So I went and talked to the Yaesu rep for that particular radio, and he told me, you know, I just wish we'd quit selling programming software and just tell everybody to go buy RT systems, which is what he ended up doing after a large hassle of trying to use Chirp. So
There's no profit in software, and these manufacturers do not want to mess with it. And RT Systems makes their money off of software. And that's really what all these manufacturers need to do is just say, hey, you know, our official software is RT Systems. Even my beloved Elecraft is not building the software for their radios. They farmed it off because they want to focus on building and developing the radios and not dealing with all of the questions and problems you have with software.
And last year, I don't know how long we spent at the Yaesu booth for the automatic tuning antenna system, the ATAS antenna. Jim gave me a used one, and you know, again, another one of my bargains. I got a free, basically $300 antenna, but bought a $600 radio to make it work. Don't ask me about it.
You had the option of that $100 device for your icon.
I did.
And you took the Yaesu.
I took the Yaesu instead. But
But what, did
how
he tell
long
you
did he
why?
spend with us? He spent a long time demoing the antenna with the radio and all with us. And he said, here's my card. If you call this number for tech support, you'll talk to me. You know, so that I think was one of the best things about going to when there was face-to-face meeting.
I watched the demo. I was interested in I'm interested in receiving satellite telemetry, and I was watching a demo at DX Engineering that we've got some catalogs from them, but they had a device that that will interface rotors if you have them, as-L rotators, the software for tracking the satellite, the path for aiming the antenna to stay, taking care of the Doppler shift for the tuning of the radios, and I mean just a really slick package for doing satellite up. Other activities that are taking place, they're offering licensing license exams. There's an activity called Contest University, which is a lot of presentations by really top-notch DX stations and operators. There's an activity called 4 Days in May, which is put on by the QRP Amateur Radio Club International. Seminars, demos, homebrew contests, vendor tables there. These are taking place during the week before Hamvention. The after-hour get-togethers, like at Nick's, and there's some other social events that take place. And if you go to Dayton, you've got to go to the Museum of the Air Force. It is spectacular. It is just an amazing thing that you could spend days at.
The only thing that could possibly rival that museum is the Smithsonian, the U.R. Hazy Museum. But this museum is top-notch. They even have a crew that goes around every morning and dusts the aircraft. And for example, there is a famous B-17 from World War II called the Memphis Belle. And there it is, right there on display. You can walk under the Memphis Belle, 81-year-old aircraft that has been restored like the day it came off of the line.
a B-29
Yes.
with,
Second atomic bomb aircraft.
and they have
It's
replicas.
still glowing.
Yeah.
Just the tail.
All right, this was my mission beforehand, what I had planned to do. I wanted to talk to some technical experts. I had some ideas. The Linux and the Ham Shack guys I mentioned. There's an application called SatNogs, which is a free software that will decode satellite telemetry. And there are so many private satellites that are being launched that don't have the benefit of the deep space network and big dish antennas tracking these satellites around. And they're utilizing people with an SDR and an appropriate antenna to download the telemetry and feed that information back to the satellite owners. And it's kind of cool to go track satellites. So I talked with Halibut Electronics, Scotty Halibut, about his eggnog, which he's named because it's an egg beater antenna for SatNogs. And talked with him about low noise amplifiers and the construction of this. Mentioned the HamSci and Tapper personnel about the personal space weather station. I wanted to look at some new test equipment. There's a company called Unity, a Chinese company who manufactures for some of the more well-known, like Rigel or Siglent. They're the manufacturer, or ODM, for these spectrum analyzers, oscilloscopes, multimeters, and they decided, gee, we could brand this and probably make more money than their wholesale prices to the OEM. So, and then it was kind of fun. There's a guy selling a antenna in a plastic, like a paint bucket, coax on the top, and he claims he's got a very efficient 40-meter antenna inside this can. And it's kind of funny. I'm standing there listening, and he's explaining the antenna basics to a couple that are standing there. He turns to me and said, "Do you have any questions?" I said, "Oh, yes, I do." I figured out how he made it resonant in there, but call me skeptical on whether or not this thing really transmits efficiently. But anyway, fun conversation, really nice guy. Didn't need to learn all of his personal history, but beside the point. And we mentioned identify some potential presenters for Club Meter. Oh, I also got to visit with the manufacturer of the hex beam I purchased last year, and he was real interested to know how it survived the 92-mile-an-hour winds we had this spring, and that was good. Buy a radio with an attendee discount for a club member. I didn't bring it back. I didn't have to bring it back because HRO shipped it it came a day after I got back from Hamvention. I also intended to drool over some old Collins S-line equipment to what we talked about a little bit earlier. If you want to talk to some serious old-time operators, this is the place to do that. And that was important to me. I worked for Collins actually almost 60 years. No, not that long. 1974. I worked at Collins that summer as a summer engineer, and then subsequently for a couple of years. 50 years ago, yeah. 50 years ago this month I started there. So I've got a real soft spot for that, and we had S-line in the Ham Radio Club at North Dakota State University. And then dropped the jaw over the prices of solid state amps. Oh my goodness, they're expensive. But yeah, here's
You did get the van.
yeah. I stuck my head in there and was talking with an old guy, a real old guy that was sitting outside that.
1968 van.
I don't remember what year it was. That's about the time, I think.
I think it was 68 or 69 van.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, following the Hamvention, I mean, I came back with some activity. I'm gonna assemble an antenna system for the SatNogs. I'm gonna commence moving the Ham Shack off Windows to Linux. Maybe time to start assembling that personal space weather station and, you know, start making plans to attend again instead of waiting 55 years for the next one. And then here's what Jim did. It's not too soon to start planning. That's all I got. Questions?
And just to amplify a little bit on what to do in Dayton, it's just not the Air Force Museum. If the XYLs go with you, there are many things for them to do in the Amish area and the antique area. And they just go off and do it, as Bob and Bob's wife Julie and Barbara did. The,
I'm standing
That's
by
what you
the
got.
Electra something.
yeah, the electric.
So,
The Wright brothers stuff.
Hey guys, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Come again.
This will come here soon.
There
Just
is,
come to the picnic September 14th.
And you see, will we have a radio operating?
Yeah, we'll have radios.
Roger.
Well, so a critical point on planning is, when is it next year?
You can go online and they'll tell you how many days, hours, and minutes it is till the next
I'll
one
just take a
starts.
date from you.
It's,
I don't
it's the
know.
weekend after Mother's Day.
Yes, it won't be on Mother's Day.
It'll be the third weekend in May. I think Michael has it.
it is the 16th of May through, well, that's Friday, 16th through the
it's best to sort of get there on Thursday and get it.
Yeah, we
Sort of a,
we usually get in on Thursday.
The convention starts.
Friday.
But it starts Friday.
I got in on Wednesday because
Well, you had
Michelle had to set up his booth, but he also had a table at 4 Days in May for vendor night.
And you have contest university and all that stuff that goes on.
Right.
But we have, my wife has family in Root and in Xenia, so we leave just out from James. Well, they used to have a big restaurant in Xenia, now it's just a farm, well, next town over in Jamestown. But like I said, the wives usually come, you know, walk through, yeah, okay, we'll see ya. You know, see you later, and they, Barbara and Julie have their favorite restaurants already to go to in these outlying communities. There's an old mill there that has been, if you ever watch on television, the greatest Christmas light fight. And they won it, they have like 3 million lights on it. You tour the old mill and see that. So that area is really a nice tourist, I mean, it's touristy, a lot of bicycle tours through there. There's a major bicycle route that runs through the area. Like, I don't know, Pennsylvania, through Ohio, down to Indiana or Missouri or something.
And just in the Dayton area, there are, I think, 4 different Wright brothers historical sites. You can actually go to the field where they perfected the airplane.
Before you took it to North Carolina.
Well, after they took it to North Carolina. The thing in North Carolina is not a viable aircraft that you could reliably take off and fly and land. But there was a field, say again?
It's a prototype as well.
It's a
Yeah.
Oh,
park.
Kitty Hawk.
Huffman,
Kitty Hawk.
Prairie Flying Field.
Yep.
Right.
There's several parks on the air sites around.
Yeah, and they're the old bike shop.
The bike shop
bike shop.
is incredible to see, where they got the idea, hey, we really want to start building a flying machine. And it's right there, and just like the day they decided they wanted to do it. So, and there's a lot of innovation that occurred out of the Denver area, or excuse me, Dayton area, that you don't realize that people who came from that area. Pretty neat stuff.
While you're there, is there a electronic board, if you wanna try and meet up with somebody, or you try to coordinate all that ahead of time?
I know electronic board, but there's a whole list of local repeaters and the DARA, the Dayton Area Radio Amateur Club repeater. It's kind of like a central point. As we were driving into town, we were chatting with some folks that were driving into town, and so they're, probably recommended to do it by radio.
I
But
don't think there's an electronic bulletin board, but like he says, there's a ton of repeaters in the area. There is a, what is it, ARRL event
Yeah.
application you can put on your phone for where all the different vendors are in the buildings and forums and all that kind of stuff.
So Ray, what are you talking about? Meeting somebody you know,
Like,
or?
there are hands that I have some contact with.
Sure.
Who live in the Carolinas or live somewhere else. And they were there when I was there. I would love to meet them in person.
I think what had happened with me is that arrangement was made on the air. Hey, I'm going to Dayton, or are you going to Dayton? And yeah, we'll meet up. And we can exchange phone numbers via email or whatever. That's how I did a lot of the people that I was meeting up with.
I had a guy that hunted me on my parks activations out of Kentucky, and he said he was going up. So we exchanged emails, and I said, well, I actually just gave my cell phone number. I said, text me when you get there. And he shot me a text because I might have homemade ice cream. Have you ever been?
That's where we
know
all
where
met.
it's at. So yeah, I mean, make your contacts ahead of time if you're gonna be there, and then you can always meet for breakfast or that food area. I mean, it's if there's 20 food trucks there, and there's one.
the local Boy Scouts have a stand. I mean, there were just local emergency responders were giving out water. Had big jugs of iced water, and you could fill up cups and hydrate.
Like Loren suggested, don't go at noon to eat.
Yeah.
Okay, you either start moseying out there about 11-ish, and the lines are reasonable. If you wait till everybody, it's lunchtime.
It might be 2 o'clock before you feel like standing in line
Don't
again.
eat at 12, we'll be in line till 1.
Yeah.
As much as I love a road trip, it's flying.
There's a number of airports that you can fly into too. It's not that far from Cincinnati. You could fly into Columbus or Dayton, and you've got choices.
Cincinnati, you raise your house, take it away to, and get a rental car from there. I think Cincinnati's what, an hour?
It's about 65 miles down the interstate.
Yeah, I've been in the area before. Just didn't know how easy it would be.
I think
It's right, the convention center, 15 miles east of the major interstate.
Just give Bob's phone number and say, hey, come get me.
I'm gonna stay at his hotel.
There you go.
Dayton isn't that bad an airport. It's
But I mean, you can get nonstop from here to Cincinnati.
and Columbus is what, an hour and a half?
So they told me in Washington Courthouse, it's about equidistant to Columbus, Dayton, and maybe a little bit further to Cincinnati. I mean, it didn't take that long. We were 35 minutes from the event.
And the roads in Ohio are incredibly smooth.
Well,
You drive in from Indiana and your fillings have been shook out. And as soon as you go across the line into Ohio, it's like glass.
We noticed that. I commented about that.
I don't understand why the other states can't do it.
It has something to do with tax base and,
I don't know.
but it's a fun, I mean, it's, of course, what you make out of it, but, you know, you could have a miserable time complaining about the rain, or go inside and think about your buddy hanging out
have a bag or a backpack with a little compact umbrella in it. Somebody took pity on me in line to get into the event on Friday morning, or I'd have been drenched. I mean, just drenched. Thankfully, he had an extra umbrella.
You can purchase your tickets in advance online through the Dayton Area Radio Club, Hamvention.com, and
They mail it to you.
yeah, $25. So you have your ticket already. You're not standing in line at the booth or whatever.
Is it a ticket a day?
No.
It's a ticket for the whole, $25 for the whole.
Yeah, I think if you buy online, it's 25. If you wait till there's 30 or something, there's a discount for buying online. The thing is, the history of this show is it used to be at a place called the Hera Arena in Dayton, which was rubbish. The last year they actually had it there, they had a giant sewer leak in front of the place, and people were going through sewage to get in it, and it was just an old arena that finally the thing fell into disrepair. A tornado took it down, and they discovered the Xenia Fairgrounds, which are very, very nice. It's a very nice facility.
Lots of bathrooms in the building, lots of porta-johns outside the building.
Yes.
And it's, you know, my second trip was a lot different than my first trip. Once I knew it was there, it was like, wow, I should have done this.
Mine will be a lot different too. I was kind of like just walking around with my mouth agape.
There's another thing. If you don't want to deal with the parking on site, which, you know, it's hard to get in there sometimes, they have remote facilities that will bus you in. And Barbara and I used the remote facilities the first year we were there. And it's Xenia High School. This is huge parking area. It's asphalt. You park, you get on a bus, they take you in, you get on that bus, they take you out. Now, Bob had a handicap sticker, so we use that to go into the handicap area, which is a help. But if you don't have a buddy with a handicap sticker, that remote parking is fantastic.
Or somebody with a vendor
is another
ticket
thing.
that gets you kind of close to.
A lot of people will buy those flea market booths because they get a parking pass. And what they do is they just set something up there, and that's their hangout spot. And, you know, they might put a piece of equipment out there or anything, but they'll use that flea market or vendor pass as a parking pass.
And a place to pitch a tent and have some shade.
Yeah.
I mean, they have scooter rentals available. I mean, it's huge. It is big.
You gotta be careful for the scooters sometimes.
I was attacked by, I was sitting there at this table like this, and a neck like this, and all of a sudden this guy loses control of the scooter and slams into it. You gotta watch out for this guy.
Like I said, I'll get reservations for Nick's Restaurant, which is like the only restaurant in Xenia, but great food. steaks, pizza, sandwiches,
There's a couple of barbecue joints.
salads. Yeah, down in Dayton itself, there's of course, the relatives took us there, of course, it's a barbecue place, but it's also Honduran food, which is our ethnic backgrounds. I had barbecue ribs and stuff down.
As one does.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren.